In today's show, we're continuing our season preview series, talking all things Donovan Clingan, the Blazers' big man in the middle. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're continuing our season review series where we'll run through every player on the roster and talk about what they did in the 2024-2025 campaign. We've done 3 of these. This is number 4. We're talking about the Blazers' young 5. That's number 23, Donovan Clingan. Some numbers for you to get you started with the program. We'll talk about what Donovan Clingan did as a rookie. We will visit with Michael from the past to talk about my preseason predictions, what I thought the best and worst case scenarios were for Donovan Clingan way back in September, and see where he landed based on what I thought before I'd really seen him play any NBA games. A little bit of summer league basketball and some college hoops in there, but no true bona fide NBA games. My predictions from way back when. Then we'll talk about what's next for Clingan and some players I think he can emulate based on what he is and maybe what he can't be, but also what he definitely already has shown us. So let's get right into it. What Donovan Clingan do as a rookie? He appeared in 67 games, started 37 of them, played 19 minutes a night. He averaged 6.5 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and 1.6 blocks per game. He shot 53.9% from the floor, including 28.6% from 3 and 59.6% at the free throw line. He led all rookies in blocks per game at 1.6. Dude was a really good shot blocker. We're going to talk about it a lot in today's episode. He was, from the jump, a regular but small minute contributor for the Portland Trailblazers. He appeared in all of the first of the first 12 games of the regular season, but he didn't crack that 20-minute mark until game number 12. He had played all the other 11 games. He just had been playing. He'd play in a small minute role on a team that needed him to play small minutes, or at least had carved out a space where he wasn't going to play a ton of minutes because DeAndre Ayton was healthy and it just wasn't the move they were going to make. But thanks to some injuries and just the situation, the natural attrition of an NBA season, Donovan Clingan got the call in Game 13. And in mid-November, he had a moment against the Minnesota Timberwolves. In a game the Blazers won down the stretch, Donovan Clingan had 17 points, 12 boards, 8 blocks, including 5 swats in the fourth quarter. A truly dominant late-game performance from the then 20-year-old rookie center who would not turn 21 until January. Clingan was always sort of part of the plan. I liked that about his season. I liked that about the way the Blazers handled him. When he wasn't part of the plan, there was a time this year when he was sort of alternating minutes with Rob Williams, and they would just make him inactive in those minutes. But for the most part, and that happened a handful of times, but for the most part, when Clingan was available, when he was healthy and able to play, he sustained some what was a scary MCL sprain at one point, but ended up coming back rather quickly after missing a little bit of time. When he was available to play, Donovan Clingan played regularly. There was that was right around Thanksgiving, end of November, that MCL sprain that caused him to miss 7 games. But he came back in the middle of December and played. He had an ankle sprain that knocked him out of a little bit of games in January, but for the most part, dude played. And I like that about him. I like that he got the opportunity. I like that they gave him opportunity. He didn't get big minutes. In part because he probably wasn't ready early in his career to play big minutes. But because of the roster situation and injuries to DeAndre Ayton and Rob Williams, Clingan got the call down the stretch after the All-Star break. He started each of the final 27 games of the regular season. That's the last game before the break and every game after the All-Star break. And during that stretch, he averaged 8 and 10. That's 8.3 points, 10 boards to go along with 1.8 assists and 1.8 blocks. When he played, those aren't like wildly impressive numbers. But a dude who's playing, in the about half of the game, giving you 8 and 10 and almost 2 blocks, he's a beast. In fact, on a per-possession basis, Donovan Clingan led the league in 2 categories. This is per 100 possessions, according to Basketball Reference. Donovan Clingan, top of the league in 2 categories. Block shots per 100 possessions with 4. Dude swats everything. He knows what he does. He's gigantic and in the way, and he's good at being gigantic and in the way. You can see the instincts. And fouls. Clingan fouls a bunch. I would say early on in the season, I don't care that he fouls a bunch. When you're playing 17 minutes a night off the bench, you can commit 5 fouls. They're not going to ask you to play more. It doesn't matter. There's some detriment, right? Because you're putting teams in the bonus, and you're giving up some negative plays with those fouls, right? They're not all created equal. But in general, you'd rather him be aggressive than not aggressive. There were times later in the season that the foul stuff came up, and it was frustrating and all of those things. But I don't mind the fouls for a youngster. If he does become a regular big minute guy, if he is going to play 27 plus minutes a night for the Blazers, in perpetuity into the future, he can't foul out. They're going to need him, right? He can't be someone who's constantly in foul trouble. Although, if you block shots and challenge shots and guard the rim, you're going to get fouls. That's just the nature of it. But I thought Clingan closed the season strong. Maybe not like the most impressive games that you've ever seen, but the final 5 games of the season, he scored in double figures. He had an 18 rebound game late against the Chicago Bulls. He had multiple blocks of his final 10 games. He had multiple blocks in 6 of them. He showed a lot of promise at what he's good at. And he showed the things that he isn't very particularly good at very clearly as well. But the strengths were indeed very strong. And I think that's important about Donovan Clingan, because that was something that stood out in Summer League. It was like, yeah, dude really understands what he's capable of, and he seems to execute that. And also, he's not very good on offense. And then he got to the regular season and was like, he understands what he's capable of, and he's not particularly good on offense. Clingan, as offensively, shot pretty poorly at the rim. According to Cleaning the Glass, he shot 64% at the rim, which is in the 27th percentile among big men. He wasn't particularly good at it. In theory, I guess he was supposed to be someone who shot threes. That never really came about this year. He shot 28.6% from 3. That's 14 of 49 across 67 games. It's not particularly high volume and not particularly good accuracy, right? Low volume, poor accuracy. But what Clingan does very well is already obvious. He's an elite shot blocker, an elite offensive rebounder, pretty damn good defensive rebounder in his own right. If he had qualified minutes-wise, his block percentage, which is the percentage of opponents' field goal attempts you block while you're on the court, would have been second in the league behind Victor Wembanyama. And if he had qualified minutes-wise for the league leaders, his offensive rebound rate would have led the league. Dude gets opportunities. But he doesn't really have some of the sort of skills you'd want him to have on offense. He doesn't have a go-to move at all in the post. He can't mash switches. You can guard Donovan Clingan with a wing. You can just put a wing on him, and he's not going to take that little guy to the post and punish him. He might punish him on the offensive glass, but that's a risk that a lot of teams are willing to live with. He can't take advantage of mismatches. He doesn't have post moves. He doesn't have great hands. He has pretty poor touch around the rim. I thought he was, at UConn, he flashed some real passing skills. I thought that was going to be a thing. I don't think it was during his rookie season. There were some moments for sure where he threw some nice passes where you're like, yeah, but in terms of overall, and I'm not even talking assists. I'm just talking moving the ball in a smart and effective way. That never really came about. On offense, he was a negative in terms of individual offense and scoring. And in fact, I guess maybe more broadly speaking, the Blazers offense was a little bit worse when he was on the court, and the defense was significantly better because the strengths are strong. Donovan Clingan knows what he does, and he does it very well. He doesn't guard well at 30 feet. He doesn't move his feet particularly well on the perimeter. But what he does do is deter shots at the rim, block shots when you get there, and keep drivers out of that space. Knowing what you do well and executing that is an incredibly valuable NBA skill. I want to talk about that a little bit more in the second segment and to close the show beyond that. Plus, we'll visit with Michael from the past to talk about what I thought back in September, what Donovan Clingan's best and worst case scenarios might be. We will do all of that in the second segment. Join me there. Before we get there, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by CarGurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But between confusing prices and hidden fees, it can feel overwhelming. That's why I like CarGurus. They can help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the United States. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. You need a deal you can trust? Well, CarGurus makes it easy to compare vehicles side by side with unbiased deal ratings. Plus, they got price drop alerts, so you know exactly when the perfect car is available for your budget. It's no wonder that SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure that your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com, CarGurus.com. Today's program is also brought to you by WayFair. It is indeed spring, which means it is indeed home project season, which means you can go over to WayFair and help tackle your projects. Whether that's a full renovation or just refreshing a room, WayFair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement, from small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting. WayFair has quality products at every budget. If you're a longtime listener, you know that I'm doing some minor and medium upgrades to my home, and I've used WayFair to help me along the way, including purchasing a small couch for our young child. Shopping is seamless, and you can find exactly what you need to fit your space. Even if it's not a small child's bedroom with relatively low ceilings, you can find something that'll fit what you need. WayFair makes home improvement easy. Get started now at wayfair.com. That's WayFair.com. WayFair, every style, every home. All right. So let's talk Donovan Clingan. He's been good at what he's really good at. And I think that matters. And quite frankly, I think we kind of saw this coming. When we saw him briefly at Summer League, what he was really good at, he was dominant in. And what he was bad at, it was like, yeah, I don't know. How's this guy going to score points in the NBA? And I quite frankly, I don't think that's changed that much. I really don't. I think that's about the same. So what I want to do before talking about what Donovan Clingan's really good at and where he can still grow is revisit my best and worst case scenarios from way back in September. We'll bring in Michael from the past, where I did my season preview, talking best case scenario within reason and worst case scenario without injury. Take it away, Michael from the past. So what's the best case scenario for Donovan Clingan? It's that by February or March, it's abundantly clear that he is the center of the future. That doesn't mean that he is like wholly dominant, the second coming of, Bill Walton meets LaMarcus Aldridge or something like that. It means that as a young man who spent 2 years in college, after a half season and a little bit more in the pros, it's clear he's going to be a very good NBA center, and you do not have to worry about that position because you nailed it in the draft. Certainty is the best case scenario for Donovan Clingan. So what does certainty look like? It looks like that the stuff that he showed flashes of in Vegas and was very good at in college really translate. He's an elite shot blocker. He is not this crazy, versatile, run around the court guard at 35 feet modern center. He's big, and he's going to play big. He's going to be gigantic and in the way, which means he's going to drop low on picks. He's going to guard the paint and protect the rim. And the best case scenario is that Donovan Clingan, with those gifts and with the shot blocking he showed in college and with the shot blocking he flashed in Vegas in Summer League, that it's clear that he's going to be very good at that, and they don't have to worry. And it's clear that the passing skills as a high post hub, as a dribble handoff guy, as a short roll decision maker when he sets screens and doesn't roll all the rim but catches it short and has to read a defense on the fly. It's clear that all of that works. And plus, the offensive stuff that maybe is in question, he's got at least it figured out what he does and dial. What's the worst case scenario? It's that the offense is rough all year and the defense doesn't fully translate to the point where it's clear he's going to be a highly effective defender in the league. I don't think there's a world, I don't think there is a worst case scenario in which Clingan is just terrible. The worst case scenario is that Clingan looks like a rookie. There's a world where he just struggles to stay on the floor because of foul trouble. He only played 22 and a half minutes his sophomore year, a game at his sophomore year at UConn. There's a world in which just his conditioning doesn't allow him to be a high-level contributor beyond an 8-10 minute stretch. And so he can't get hot in a quarter and keep playing because he literally can't stay on the court. The worst case scenario is that Clingan, like so many young big men before him, looks like a dude who's going to need more time and isn't an easy plug-and-play defender. Thank you, Michael from the past, you handsome dog. If you're listening on audio, let me just assure you, I was very handsome in September and remain so. In any case, I'm recording late at night and I'm having a little bit of fun. I don't think Donovan Clingan nailed that best case scenario, but boy, he creeped up towards it. Some of that is a little bit of hedging by me back in September because I didn't think that there was a world in which Donovan Clingan was just elite offensive player and all those things. But I don't think you can say yeah, this is the dude, he's for sure the starting center. But I think you can start to whisper that. I think you can feel pretty darn comfortable with it. I mentioned that he started the final 27 games of the regular season. And that's so every game after the All-Star break and the one right before it. During that stretch, he played 25 and a half minutes a night. It's pretty darn good. There was some concerns, maybe not concerns. He needed to get in better conditioning. That was part of his challenge, was he just needed to get in NBA shape to play NBA basketball, to play real NBA minutes. He had to get there. I think it's a little overblown by some maybe members of the fan base, but you can overblow anything you like. That Clingan just he's incapable of playing. I think he had some big minute nights early in the season where his production really soared. Maybe he wouldn't be capable of doing that at night after night after night after night, right? And the Blazers were somewhat cautious with his minutes to be certain. But the final 27 games of the regular season, he's playing 25 and a half minutes a night. If he plays 26 minutes a night and averages 8, 10, and 2 blocks, you can be pretty happy with him. And that's 8, 10, and 2 blocks with basically no way to score on offense. In addition to not really having any moves, he doesn't have the athleticism to be a leaper and an awesome lob finisher. He's going to have to figure out how he gets there. But I do think he avoided the worst case scenario because he doesn't seem far away. He doesn't seem to need more time because he's already impactful. He's certainly imperfect, right? He's not a good offensive player, and he might never be a good offensive player. And I think that's just part of that might be part of the deal, right? Is that he is always going to be not particularly good on that end, and figuring out how he can be particularly good on that end, it will be his struggle because he's awesome on the other end. But why I don't think you could say the pendulum is very, very close to the best case scenario because he's good at what he's good at. Here's some numbers to know. According to Clean the Glass, NBA teams shoot when Donovan Clingan is on the court. Blazers opponents shoot 3% worse have a 3% worse effective field goal percentage when he plays. That's in the 90th percentile among players in the NBA. He's elite at just making teams take worse shots, and they shoot worse at the rim, about 2% worse at the rim when he's on the court. But even more than that, right? That's accuracy. They just don't go to the rim. He's an elite rim deterrent, and I think this is the real part that makes me feel like Donovan Clingan is going to be really good. He's in the 97th percentile in opponents' frequency, like the reduction of opponents' rim shots when he's at the game, opponents' attempts at the rim. They take 5.5% fewer shots at the rim. That's in the 97th percentile, the shots within 4 feet of the basket when he's on the court. And we know where they go. They take mid-range shots, an increase by about 4.7% in all mid-range jumpers. They're just, not only does he deter shots at the rim, like I said, would have been among, if he had qualified minutes-wise, would have been among the league leaders in block shot percentage. He keeps dudes out of the paint. Clingan's never going to be comfortable switching and guarding. Maybe not never, but he is very uncomfortable now, and I'd be surprised if he's comfortable in year 2 switching out on the perimeter. But he knows what he does. He knows what he does, and he does it very well already. And if your strengths are strong, it becomes so much easier to sharpen the things you aren't particularly good at. And this is why I feel comfortable with Clingan. And this is why I think he's very, very close to hitting that absolute best-case scenario, which is like, he's the guy. Because when you did get to February and March, as Michael from the past mentioned, you did feel pretty comfortable about what Donovan Clingan was going to be. I think maybe your level of comfort could vary, because obviously the offense was bumpy for sure. But like, because of his defensive prowess, and because that's already the thing he was supposed to be good at, you can feel pretty comfortable that that is a thing he can move forward with. The question for me is not like, can he play in the NBA Finals, right? Because I do think there is a world, like if you really project this out, that Clingan's lack of versatility on defense and switchability on defense and comfort on the perimeter makes it harder for him to play in every lineup at the highest levels against the best players in the league. Could he be hunted by, the best pick and roll operators in the game? Sure. But that's a long way away for the Blazers. What he does right now is help them win regular season games by being a great shot blocker at the rim and also keeping opponents away from the rim at the same time. There's value there. Absolutely. He provides real positive defensive impact. When he's on the court, the defense improves, opponents shoot worse at the rim, opponents take fewer shots at the rim. The Blazers' defense, in a lot of ways, is almost completely predicated on making opponents take difficult shots. Some of it was propped up by bad three-point shooting this year. I mentioned that they had some real Jedi magic, particularly on corner threes. But if teams are eschewing shots at the rim, that's step one, and Clingan really prevents layups. One of the most valuable things you can do in the league, stop dudes from taking the easiest shots, and the easiest shots have been and always will be dunks and layups. But the other thing I've been thinking is I watch the NBA playoffs. I'm watching games every night. I love it. It's a great time of year. I saw someone that Donovan Clingan can emulate, or at least point towards, to say like, hey, I might never be a very good offensive player, but there are players that are straight up excellent out there playing right now in the playoffs in 2025 who don't have any individual offense. I got a vision for Clingan that I saw this week. Join me in the third segment. We'll talk about it. Before we get into all that, though, let's talk about Gametime. It's the place for last-minute tickets. If you are close to an NBA playoff game, I encourage you to use the Gametime app to attend, because there's really not much like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. The buckets, the defensive stops, the moments are huge, and you feel it. It's electric in the arena, and Gametime can help you be a part of that without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. But if you live in my area, and we're not particularly close to any NBA playoff games, unless you want to head down to Los Angeles or the Bay Area, I guess like Denver is about equally close to LA. You could go to all of those places. But in any case, you can still get last-minute tickets to go see Timbers and Thorns games and all your footy action all summer long. And prices actually go down the closer it gets to the games and matches starting. Their last-minute ticket deals can save you up to 60%. Plus, they got all-in pricing, which means there's no surprise fees. At checkout, what you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use that redeem code, LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. I watched the Rockets play on Monday evening. And I watched Steven Adams play about as dominant a basketball game as you can play without doing anything on offense. He doesn't do anything. He barely touches the ball. He was one of the most positively impactful players on the court. In fact, so positively impactful in his 26 minutes in which he attempted 4 shots, that the Warriors schemed heavily to get your boy Steve-O off the court. So we got to foul him. We're going to start intentionally fouling and put him on the free throw line. And Ime Udoka, Rockets head coach, relented. And he said, all right, we'll take him off. That's not going to work. We got to get him out of there because we can't let them go to hack a Steve-O down the stretch. And without Steven Adams in the game, the Warriors had success, right? They found some success. Adams was one of the most dominant figures on the court, and he doesn't do anything on offense. Except he's one of the greatest offensive rebounders in the history of the league, if not the best offensive rebounder in the history of the league. And he's a beast on defense, and his physicality is... he would turn back the clock. Like, I know he's only 31 years old, but he's had some injuries. He blocked a couple shots at the rim against the Warriors. It's just like, he looked like old Oklahoma City Steven Adams, the dude who I would say back when I was a young man and maybe a little bit foolish. I was like, you know what? That James Harden trade wasn't so bad because Steve-O rips. I've been a fan. Donovan Clingan should emulate that. He probably can't be Steven Adams. But what Steve-O does is do the thing that he is absolutely dominant at every time down the court. The Rockets grabbed dang near 40% of their own misses. 40% of their own misses. An offensive rebound rate north of 38% in a playoff game. They crushed the glass. And Steven Adams sets monster screens, and he's very, very physical on defense, and he had a great rim protection game. That's the path. He was really good in Game 4. That's what it probably has to look like. Something akin to that for Clingan. And why I mention Adams is because he's always been this way. He's always been this way from the moment he got into the league. The thing that Steven Adams did as a young man in the league is like be really physical and sort of get into fights. And you know what Clingan did a little bit this year is that he showed that he's got a little bit of that in him. He is not afraid to mix it up. He's not afraid to get physical and use his gigantic frame to be a pest and be big and be hard to deal with. Adams is the vision for me, not just because of the offensive rebounding and the monster screens, and Clingan is a good screener. He could definitely improve, and he can improve tremendously as a roller. But Adams is a pretty good passer. He's just a load to deal with, and more than anything, he understands who he is. And Clingan, in year 1, deeply understands who he is. An elite rim protector, a gigantic person, one of the biggest players in the league. Almost every single night, he'll be the biggest player on the court. In fact, when the Blazers played Zach Edey in Memphis, Edey is like bigger, right? He's bigger. But I don't think he didn't dwarf Clingan in the way that I felt like he did when I watched them match up in college. I think obviously they didn't grow or whatever, but I even the biggest players in the league aren't towering over Clingan. He's that big. It's like, 7'2", pushing three bills. Be gigantic, be in the way, set good screens, be an elite offensive rebounder. He already is an excellent offensive rebounder. Like I said, he would have led, if he had qualified minutes-wise, he would have led the league in offensive rebound rate. Obviously, Steven Adams exists too, and he would have pushed it up there as well. He would have led the league in offensive rebound rates if he had qualified minutes-wise. Do what you do best. I think there is a roadmap for a guy like Clingan to not ever get good at some of the things he struggles at, right? Clingan might never develop a little small jump hook that makes him useful in the post. He might never be able to mash mismatches in the post, right? You might always be able to guard him with a wing and get away with it unless he beasts on the glass. And then you have to put a Kevon Looney in the games to deal with him. You have to try size against him, right? If you can't do it with individual offense, if you can't do it in the post, if that's never going to be a thing that comes with Clingan. And right, there was this idea that he's going to be a shooter, and maybe he will be, right? Maybe he'll end up being a guy who can space a little bit. The three-point shot has not gone in with at a level that makes me feel super comfortable projecting it out, but it doesn't look terrible coming out of his hands. But I don't know. It's like a lot of dudes can shoot standstill jumpers. I've watched Robin Lopez take a lot of threes in practice, and they hit a lot of them. If that never happens, if he's never a three-point shooter, if he never crushes mismatches in the post, be a beast. Play to your absolute strengths. And Steven Adams is a great example of someone who does that, and also is a pretty good model, because if Clingan played in that manner, deeply physical, crush the offensive glass, protect the rim, be a monster screener, that's a path to a really useful player that raises the floor of every team you play on. Is Clingan going to be a super duper star? I don't know, right? Like, you know, people say he could be Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert won 4 Defensive Players of the Year. That's a lofty goal, right? Clingan has the potential to be that type of defensive impact player. But that's a lofty goal. Doing what you do best every time down the court, that's within your control. And understanding your identity in a very, very clear way is something that Clingan already seems to do. I think that's the path. I think Steven Adams is the model. And I think Donovan Clingan has the mental makeup of someone who understands his gifts to follow that exact model. He's already good at what he's good at. He just has to get, a little bit more effective, find a little bit more touch around the rim, get in tremendously good shape so you can play 28 minutes a night. And when the Blazers give him the opportunity, and I believe they will make some moves to, if not immediately this season, at some point this year, to commit to Donovan Clingan as their starting center. You don't draft him 7th overall and see what he did in his rookie season and say, yeah, he could be a backup, whatever. He's the center of the future. It's clear. The question is when. And the way you get to when, the way you speed up to when, is playing to your strengths and knowing what you do. And Clingan already does that. What I am imploring him to do here is turn that dial up to 17. Because you know what Steven Adams does? Nothing he's not good at. He is only playing the hits. Play the hits. And have a freaking monster career being someone who plays the hits. That is going to do it for today's program. Come back for tomorrow's show. This is what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.